Okay, welcome back to another video. This is all going to be about building a pike position. So this is another diving video. Not going to be talking about strength training within this one. I can go on another elaborate one that will go over intertwining strength training, but as of right now, this is maybe more for a younger audience that doesn't have strength training, or they can't even implement a lot of these mobility routines within their strength training programs. So then this can be an older audience if they don't have control over something like that, like a college team. So the big piece that I would start to lean into is first actually really digging into dynamic work. Can we be very intentional with dynamic work? So as we see here, I have leg swings, dynamic leg swings. I'm trying to get as small as I can, trying to compress my leg to as close as I can without kicking myself in the face, as close to my face as possible. Obviously, when you first start, you're not going to get that close, but you can work towards having these qualities within your hamstring by doing a lot of sets and reps. You have another similar exercise here. If you wanted to switch up, doing a walking dynamic leg kick, if you just get over standing in one position and kicking. And then we have other ballistic and not as dynamic movements, but still are kind of greasing the hamstrings and starting to hit the low back a little bit. This is a compressed leg extension here. So I'm grabbing my leg, I'm locking it off, and then trying to extend my leg as much as I can to really feel that stretch. You'll be surprised on how much of a stretch this actually gives you. But movements like these actually really train the active and the dynamic accessibility we have to these muscle groups. And so when you're looking at getting into a pike position and diving, it's not just about passive mobility. So if you're just sitting in a pike position, staying there for as long as you can, that can be beneficial, but long term, it won't go as far as you would like it to. And so you could actually gain a lot of progress by just doing a lot of dynamic work and implementing that. Another one is more of a ballistic movement, but it's a standing pike pulse. And you can see me bobbing here, so I'm hitting more of the end range of this hamstring. But that really works the hamstrings, and you will be sore. So for something like that, I would take it slow and not probably start with those. I would start with the leg swings, the walking dynamic kicks, the compressed leg extension. That will be hard, but stuff like that's kind of easier. If you did want to start with something ballistic such as that, the standing pike, use your hands. Don't make it as aggressive as the video I'm just showing you here, to where I'm bouncing up and down and really trying to get as far as I can. These type of movements you want to take slow, and you really want to make sure your body feels safe doing them. Then eventually you can get to something like this inverted pike on the stall bar, which is kind of a fun one I made up, but again, you're really working that hamstring in that super deep position. To me, was a little bit more beneficial towards the end, instead of just sitting in a pike position hoping that it would get more flexible. The other piece that goes a long way that people don't really think about is actually the compressive strength to pull up your leg as far as you can while you're in a position in the air, right? How can we get as small as we can? It's not just your hamstrings having flexibility or your low back being able to fold. It's actually your hip flexors being able to pull your leg in as much as you can. So I'm going to just show you a couple of variations. Single leg lifts. You can do a double leg lift and hold both of them. This is similar to an L hold. You can literally do an L sit on the floor, or you can do something that's compressive like this, where you're pushing your legs against the wall and then really trying to compress up and in. That one's really hard. And then the other piece here that I really like is actually being resisted against getting into a pike position. And so getting into a pike isn't, again, just your hamstrings, your low back. It's not just the flexibility, it's the strength of your body to compress. So there is a little bit of an upper body factor to this. So by resisting your pike position, resisting you getting into that position, you're actually teaching a lot of these muscles, not just your hip flexors to pull up and in, but your upper body rounding and actually kind of trying to push itself as close as possible to your legs. So this band resisted pike is probably one of my more favorite additions I had towards the end of my career. So a lot of these core movements, similar to a standing leg lift, or even these 3 series tuck ups, you can do this in a pike up also, will all help you actually compress into the position. So the 2 big things that I'll really push are, can you dynamically train the muscles? And then can we train the strength of compressing into said muscles? That is going to go a really long way. Then we can start to talk about other movements such as more passive, but even before that, I would start with more isometric. Isometric meaning you're holding a singular position. So as you can see here, this is a standing front split, but I'm not trying to go as far as I can. I actually want to challenge my muscles to hold me in this position. And so what this is doing is training strength within that particular range. And the goal is to keep trying to push that. But the goal here, if you're looking at my body, I have a little bit of a round in my low back. We'd probably want to see that not be rounded. And then you want to make sure that your hips are in line. You don't want to make sure your hips start swaying. As you can see, I have a box next to me too. You're trying to balance here. That shouldn't be the main piece. So put a box, put something next to you. You can even use a PVC pipe, a dowel rod, something to make sure that you can actually hold this position. Again, dynamic movements, compressive strength, and then isometrics. I would put you through those 3 first before we step into the next one, which would be more passive work. But before that, this is going to get a little bit wordy, but this is static active movements. Can we challenge our muscle so if you're thinking of your hamstring, can you squeeze your quad and then relax? It's called autogenic inhibition. Can you squeeze your quad so your hamstring relaxes? And so this is called PNF stretching, contract, relax stretching. So as you can see here, I am not in a full front split, but I'm actually squeezing my heel into the floor with a knee bend, so my hamstring's being challenged. I'm pulling in as much as I can, and then I relax. So that is a form of contract, relax stretching. You don't have to squeeze the quad to relax the hamstrings. You could fire the hamstrings and then relax them into a position. So there's a bunch of different ways that we can do these PNF stretches, contract, relax stretches, but things like this really are able to implement more strength aspects into our passive work, giving us more of what we want is the active ability to access these ranges of motion versus just being able to be in a front split. And what does that really do for you if you can't get into a full pike position? Because a front split's cool, but like if you can't get into a pike position, then what's the utility of it for diving? And then other pieces are your hip flexors might just be super locked up. So if you're really struggling and your back has to round like crazy, there's going to be a little bit of your physiology that's built into this. Like you're just built a specific way. I had to round my back because I just have a tighter low back, and that's just how my body's built. And so I always had to work on opening my quads and my hip flexors up. So I'd use, again, a PNF, a contract, relax, stretch. I would squeeze my glute so I could relax into my quad and hip flexor. And so I really enjoyed doing this wall couch stretch. I would use a little bit of load. So as you can see here, I'm holding a kettlebell over my head. That is not necessary at the beginning. This is once I've been doing this for a very extended period of time to where I feel like I can add a little bit of external load. At the beginning, can you work towards getting your shin flat on the wall? If you can't do that, then you do not really need any sort of external load yet. You need to perfect this movement. And so this is great for opening up your hip flexor. I would definitely always throw this in within a program. There's different variations of doing this, but the wall couch stretch, you can do it on the floor, is a very, very important one if you're gonna work opening up the quad. And then other ones, honorable mentions, I will call them, things to look at. Can you move your spine? So as you see here, I have a dowel rod and I'm twisting. This all plays into how we can, because a pike is a full body movement. So can you move your spine in different ways? This other movement here is a cobra push-up. Again, we're just working and opening up the low back to to where it can help us get that spinal flexion into that position. Another one that I am a big fan of is if you're low back, if you feel like there's a lot of tightness when you go to get into a pike, is can you work on building a pretty solid or strong pigeon? So we're really trying to open up the glute. As you can see, again, the pike position, there's a lot of different things that go into this movement. So it's not just, hey, I need to open up my hamstrings. It might be your hamstrings, your hip flexors, your glutes, your low back, your compressive strength. All of these pieces play into building that one movement. And so we have to look at the movement as a whole, and then how can we compartmentalize all these little pieces to where we can work on them. So in the end, then once you've been able to look at all these pieces, then you can do some passive work like this reverse wall pike stretch, to where it's working that whole posterior chain. It's working your calves, it's working your hamstrings, it's working your glutes, it's working your spinal erectors. That is a great movement to work that whole back chain to where it will help you getting into that position. And again, it's a simple movement. You put your upper back on the wall, walk away 2.5 feet from your head. You might have to go a little bit farther, and then try to roll your hips up and away from you, and you feel a crazy stretch. Sit there for 30 seconds to 90 seconds, do 3 to 4 sets, twice a week, 3 times a week if you can recover from it. And then bada bing, bada boom, there's your passive work. But a lot of these things need to be addressed before you straight up do passive stretching, to where you just sit there and do nothing. All of these other ones I would lean into first, and then you can do that at the end. So again, if you have any further questions, or you need something to be expanded upon, if you have any ideas yourself on what you've done to get a better pike, let me know in the comments. We can keep building here. This is going to be a space for strength training, mobility training. If you don't want a pike position, but you want to be able to touch the floor a lot easier, this is going to be a similar process. Not going to be as extreme, but it's a similar process. So thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys on the next one.